Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, the great millstone, who are teaching us truth and sincerity. And a shout out to Yakim and Yaquath. Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Brakat Dam. So, this is the news that they're trying to keep you distracted from, which, over here I always try to read actually what's really going on in the world, and not being caught up in the Kobe Bryant death or other things. I did make mention of it when it happened, and that's about it. Because you know as well as I do that the Illuminati always plans these deaths, but generally they do that to drown out other news that's going on, such as Syria advancing in Idlib. So here's more from the Syrian War Report.
Idlib militants seem to be in disarray amid the developing advance of the Syrian army. Since the liberation of Marat al-Numan, government forces have achieved several important breakthroughs on the front line in southeastern Idlib and southwestern Aleppo. The army has liberated the villages of Al-Kahira, Al-Jaradah, Khan Asubul, Marat Dibsa, and Ain Halbain, all located on the M5 highway north of Martan al-Numan. Near Aleppo city, government forces have liberated Tel Maher, Tel Abiat, Tel Aisatul, Tel Al-Marukat, Jurf al-Sakher, the Rashidin 5 neighborhood, and one of the key militant strongholds, Khan Tuman. Most of these areas were liberated without significant resistance from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, formerly the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda, or the Turkish-backed National Front for Liberation. Despite this, according to pro-opposition sources, up to 200 militants have been killed or wounded in clashes with the Syrian army. The setbacks of Al-Qaeda-backed militants and their pro-Turkish allies has caused discontent in Turkey. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan claimed that Russia hasn't abided by either the Astana or the Sochi agreements. "We have waited until now, but from this point we are going to take our own actions. This is not a threat, but our expectation is that Russia will give the regime the necessary warning," the president said. The main point of contradictions between Turkey and the Syrian-Russian-Iranian alliance is the fighting of terrorism and the separation of opposition groups from terrorist groups like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Ankara does not want to, or just cannot, separate its proxies in Idlib from Al-Qaeda. So it sees anti-terrorism efforts by the Syrian-Russian-Iranian alliance as a threat to its own interests and influence. On January the 29th, reports appeared that Syrian government forces had shelled a Turkish military convoy west of Aleppo city. According to photos which appeared online, the shelling destroyed at least one vehicle. However, it remains unclear if it belonged to the Turkish army. Turkish military convoys moving through Idlib often include members and equipment of Turkish-backed militant groups, so one of these vehicles may have become a target of the Syrian strike. This would explain the lack of reaction from the Turkish Defense Ministry. Currently, the advance of government forces seems to be focused on the M5 highway area. The army and its allies exploit the internal contradictions among Idlib militant groups who have failed to cooperate properly to set up strong defenses deep inside the region. It is no secret that mighty Idlib fighters prefer taking selfies to digging trenches.
And if you're not subscribed to him, this is Syrian analysis. He seems to be the only one besides Syrian Girl that actually gives you news from Syria in English, besides RT, that is. So, after YouTube had gotten rid of the Syrian news channels, pretty much the pro-Syrian government channels, it's harder to get stuff unless you're reading the articles yourself. So, and you can't even find new Press TV videos either unless you go to the Press TV webpage itself. Nonetheless, though, this is what's been going on in Idlib, which you notice the mainstream outlets don't even want to talk about it.
Hello, this is a quick update on the recent developments in Idlib and Aleppo and the offensive of the Syrian army against the Islamist terrorists there. For several months, the Syrian army is trying to advance in Idlib, but after years and years of military, financial, and intelligence support by regional and international powers to the Al-Qaeda terrorists, it was important for the Syrian government to diversify its efforts between military and diplomacy. On the diplomatic level, after getting the consent of Damascus, Moscow held rounds of talks with Ankara and reached to several agreements, particularly the Astana and Sochi processes, which affirmed Syria's right to restore its territories, disarm the radical jihadists, and reopen the M4 and M5 highways. Only 2 weeks ago, the head of Syria's National Security Bureau, Ali Mamlouk, met with Turkey's head of National Intelligence Organization, Hakan Fidan, on the sidelines of a meeting in Moscow. According to Syria's official news agency Sana, at the tripartite meeting, Syrian, Russian, and Turkish, the Syrian side called on the Turkish side to fully commit to the sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity of the Syrian Arab Republic and the immediate and complete withdrawal of Turkish occupation forces from all Syrian lands. Mamluk also urged the other side to fulfill its obligations under the Sochi Agreement regarding Idlib, especially with regards to clearing the region of terrorists and heavy weapons and opening the Aleppo, Latakia, and Aleppo Hama roads. This is in diplomacy. On the military side, the recent offensive of the Syrian army from southwestern Aleppo and southeastern Idlib indicate that the priority of the SAA is to capture the M5 highway, which basically means linking Syria's industrial city of Aleppo to Idlib, Hama, Homs, and Damascus. It is true that the Syrian army liberated the city of Aleppo, but the suburbs are still occupied. And most importantly, the city doesn't have access to Azaz and then Turkey, and doesn't have access to other main cities. Therefore, even if Aleppo is reconstructed in the upcoming years and the industry is recovered, the businessmen and the industrialists of Aleppo cannot simply export their goods. But this could change in the upcoming few months because the Syrian army is advancing from two axes. And as we see from the map of control, the battle for the strategic city of Marit Noman, 33 kilometers south of the city of Idlib, has ended in a devastating defeat for the jihadi terrorists. The strategy of the Syrian army after Marit Noman is to advance towards Sarakib and maybe wait for the advancing troops from southern Aleppo to meet somewhere on the M5 highway. Furthermore, the SAA might advance to Ariha and create a foothold on the M4 highway, which links Aleppo to the coastal cities. It has been proven for years that capturing M4 to advancing from the axis of Kabani is very, very difficult. Therefore, the SAA might try to capture M4 from different axes. If this plan doesn't work, then the only way is to make a big sacrifice and advance towards Kabani Hills and later to Jisr al-Shuhur. But I guarantee this would be very, very bloody and costly because the area is full of multinational terrorists, mainly Uyghur and Chechen militants. This was a quick update for you on the current offensive in Idlib and Aleppo countrysides. A few years ago, it sounded insane to believe that the Syrian army might liberate every inch of the country, but today it is realistic, and we can say President Assad is keeping his promise. I've been your host, Georg Almasian of Syriana Analysis. Credit goes to the Patreon community that is supporting this channel financially on a monthly basis.
And that's just it, though, is these places, of course, are all based upon, viewers' support, because we know that they're not paid by mainstream. Nonetheless, though, you can tell what's going on. They don't want to talk about that in the mainstream. No, of course not, because it goes against the Zionists, a.k.a. Amalek, the least of the flock, drawing everybody in. And, of course, like everything else, I'm very limited as to how much I can show here, but this is some of the fighting that's been going on. So this is from the new liberated Marat al-Numan, a key area in the Idlib province. Oops. Well, nothing I can do about it now. Anyways, here's what's going on. Which is just like the map Syrian Analysis had just pulled up. So you can see how much more has been taken from the terrorists. So yeah, protests are everywhere. They want the U.S. out of the Middle East, and there's strong opposition to it. It's happening in Iraq and Syria that, they may just be forced to go to Saudi Arabia. And isn't that what Apostle Tahar has been telling us all along, that most of the military is going to sit right there into Saudi Arabia? Well, there you go, to fight this bigger war. So either way, pretty much what's left, these are like ghost towns. And this is what Esau causes all around the world via his proxies, his terrorists, and his militias. Because militias are everywhere. This is what Esau brings. So, of course, to undermine what Russia is doing, in helping the Syrian Arab Army regain control of the Idlib province, of course, there's provocation, suggesting, Moscow denies reports of attacking civilians in Syria's Idlib. Well, you know who attacks civilians, these terrorist groups that the United States supports, and who attacks civilians every time they do a bombing? Who makes sure that they kill plenty of civilians? The United States. So, it's quite hypocritical. Russia says it did not conduct airstrikes on a bakery and a medical clinic in Syria's northwestern province of Idlib, branding foreign media reports as a provocation. The so-called Syrian Observatory for Human Rights claimed that Russia had airstrikes killed 10 civilians after they hit a bakery and a medical clinic in the town of Araya in Idlib early Thursday. The Russian aviation did not carry out any combat tasks in the area of Syria. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement on Thursday. The British-based observatory claims as Syrian army troops are advancing against foreign-backed Takfiri militants in Idlib. Again, even though the UK looks to, break away from the United States, they still are going to be targeted big time, for everything that they have done. They don't get away that easy. The Syrian Arab Army declared the start of an offensive against the militants in Idlib last August. It came after they positioned in the de-escalation zone failed to honor a ceasefire brokered by Russia and Turkey and continued to target civilian neighborhoods. Under the Sochi agreement, all militants in the demilitarized zone that surrounds Idlib and also parts of the provinces of Aleppo and west central province of Hama were supposed to pull out heavy arms by October 17, 2018, while the Takfiri groups having to withdraw 2 days earlier. Russia has been helping the Syrian Arab Army in the ongoing battle across the conflict-plagued Arab country. The Russian military's assistance began in September 2015 at the official request of the Syrian government. So to undermine Russia's efforts, they're trying to accuse them, and this is what Britain is doing. And of course, and more heat because, of course, all the nations hate the horror over this is because of the constant support for Amalek. Rouhani calls Trump's plan most despicable plan of the century. And a lot of places agree with him. Iran's President Rouhani has condemned U.S. President Trump's so-called peace plan for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as the most despicable plan of the century. Enough of these foolish attempts, Rouhani wrote on Twitter account on Wednesday. The most despicable plan of the century, he added. we have to try to make all Muslim countries united against the illegal and inhuman agreement, Lajari said while speaking in a phone conversation with Syrian Parliament Speaker Hamoud Sabah on Wednesday. In fact, this deal and treasonous conspiracy designed to fulfill the wishes of the Israeli regime in the region, Lajari noted, adding that despite the claims of the U.S. officials, the plan has nothing to do with the interests of the Palestinian people. Defying the international outcry, Trump announced the general provisions of the plan at the White House on Tuesday with the Israeli premier at his site. See how everybody hates Amalek and hates U.S. deals with Amalek? That's why they hate the whore. During the Tuesday joint pressure with Benjamin Not a Jew, the U.S. president once again endorsed his continuous recognition in December 2017 of Jerusalem Al-Quds as Israeli capital, a move he took in the face of Palestinian demands that the holy city should serve as the capital of the future state. He said the plan envisages the city as the Israelis' regime undivided capital. Trump's plan is widely expected to take the U.S. pro-Israeli brinkmanship to a whole new level, with various reports warning that it seeks to lay the groundwork for Israelis' annexation of about half of the West Bank, which the regime occupied in 1967, including most of Jordan Valley. So, pretty much, though, all these countries are hating the whore because of their dealings with Amalek, at least the flock drawing him out. And, of course, this is written from Press TV. Syrian government forces liberate more areas in Idlib province from terrorist grip. And we've been watching footage of that. Syrian Arab Army soldiers, backed by fighters and from allied popular defense groups, have liberated more areas in the country's northwestern province of Idlib from the clutches of foreign-sponsored Takfiri terrorists, further tightening the noose around the extremists in their last major bastion. Now you can see why they really want to get this false flag going, to say that they're using chemical weapons. Syria's official news agency on Thursday that Syrian army troops and their allied forces has established control over the villages of Mara, Dabish, Khan al-Sabi, Jabas, and Mardukh. The reports added that a number of militant positions were completely destroyed as Syrian army artillery units struck them. Syrian Arab News Agency noted that the government forces, while combating the liberated villages, found underground tunnels and trenches that terrorists used to carry munitions, transfer reinforcements, and hide from Syrian army outtakes. So, here's some of the weapons brought to you by the United States, Gomer and all his bands, Amalek, which they are Amalekites. But, of course, talking about Israeli state. On Wednesday, Syria's general commander of the army and armed forces said in a statement that government forces were in full control of Marad al-Numan city, which lies 33 kilometers south of Idlib. So, pretty much, though, it is, they are failing to keep this. But there's more from Zero Hedge. As you can tell, the government has no choice now but to admit that there's a such thing as chariots, but they won't call them chariots, they'll call them UFOs. Britain's Royal Air Force to release secret UFO files for the first time. The age-old question of we are alone in the universe may not be answered anytime soon, but the fact that Britain is planning on declassifying its UFO files for the first time puts us one step closer to the truth. Well, the truth is that Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, is about to destroy this place, and they can't deny this anymore because of the fact that everybody's seeing them. The Royal Air Force ran a UFO unit for 50 years that took in public sightings. Reports it was shut down in 2009 after it was determined none of these reports offered evidence of a real threat. The records from the unit were then given to the British National Archives where they were classified. Well, yeah, because they're just watching, they're not actually told to engage as of yet, but soon they will engage, and that's in that hour when this place, Babylon, is destroyed. A spokesman for the RAF said that it has been assessed that it would be better to publish these records rather than continue sending documents to National Archives, so they are looking to put them on to a dedicated government.uk webpage. A clearance process for the documents is currently underway before publication, which is expected to take place sometime within the first quarter of 2020, according to the Telegraph. You see, they can no longer deny this, and, you can't just say, forget what you saw here. That's not working anymore. And here we go, more on this, and this is all leading to the mark of the beast. Of course it is. Senator calls for immediate shutdown of all flights from China to the U.S. Well, you knew that was coming, of course. Senator Tom Cotton is calling for an immediate shutdown of all flights from China to the U.S., warning that Beijing is lying about the full extent of the coronavirus outbreak. The death toll from the virus, which has now reached every region in mainland China, has risen to 170, with 77 confirmed cases of people being infected. Russia has closed its entire 2,600-mile border with China. Time to shut down travel between China and the U.S. And that's from Fuck News. Israeli state shuts down commercial flights with China. Time to shut down flights between U.S. and China. So that proves to you that Israeli state runs this place. The center is also calling on the World Health Organization to reserve its decision not the coronavirus a global health emergency immediately. Yesterday, the CDC announced that 195 American citizens who returned from the epicenter of the virus outbreak in Wuhan were not under quarantine and would be allowed to leave March Air Reserve Base in California. So, and I know how big that base is. So, that's funny because of the fact that, they are doing this on purpose because, of course, there is things behind it, because check this one out. 1 week after saying cash is trash, Delos says it's time to diversity into cash. So basically, this is, a way of bringing in the mark. Back during the 2018 Davos Bondush, the Bridgewater founder mocked the stupidity of holding cash and predicted that if you're holding cash, you're going to feel pretty stupid. 1 week later, the market suffered a 10% correction on December 31st of the year. Cash would end up being the best performing asset of the year. Fast forward to Davos 2020, when speaking to CNBC last week, the billionaire investors doubled down, saying cash is trash, and added, get out of cash. There's still a lot of money in cash. So, pretty much, though, they know that they want the cashless society, and that's what they're hoping to bring soon. Just a few days later, the market suffered its biggest drop in months as traders finally realized that the Chinese global coronavirus pandemic is, as the name implies, a global viral pandemic, one which could have a devastating toll, not only in terms of human capital, but also crippling the Chinese and thus global economy, and as a result, a global liquidation where relocation of out of the risk assets and into gold bonds and, yes, cash. In other words, maybe cash isn't trash after all, because as Bloomberg reports, when evaluating market impact of the coronavirus outbreak, Dilo, who admits he knows nothing about pandemics, wrote in his daily note on clients that it is time to play safe and hedge his bets. So either way, though, the fact is, though, is that, diseases are coming out, and this is just a small little thing that's going to become bigger impact once the United States gets a taste of what it's been dealing with all along. They created the virus, and they're going to get it too. Fucking bastards. Which brings us in here to 2nd Ezra chapter 16. As you know, we're in that time. Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Well, what's Asia? Well, the main part of Asia, of course, is China, Moab. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria, which Egypt is another term for America, and Syria. So we've been talking a lot about Syria just the last a few minutes here, as you know. And then you know all about the coronavirus, so we're seeing this. Gird up yourselves with clothes of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. A sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? Again, you know that all these countries have nuclear capabilities. A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? Plagues are sent unto you. Are we not seeing plagues? And what is he that may drive them away? May any man drive away a hungry lion in the wood, or may anyone quench the fire and stubble when it hath begun to burn? So you see, eventually, though, what's going to happen is, you know, especially because of the policies of America, a.k.a. the abundancies of her whoredom, may one turn again the arrow that is shot of a strong archer. And what's that talking about? These missile systems. The mighty Yahweh sendeth the plagues, and who is he that can drive them away? A fire go forth from his wrath, and who is he that may quench it? So to anybody that buys into that microchip, the mark of the beast, they are going to be caught up in this wrath, as well as anybody joined unto Babylon, joined unto the beast, joined unto Esau, having the mark of his name, which if you're joined unto Esau, you're going to take that mark anyways. He shall cast lightnings, and who shall not fear? He shall thunder, and who shall not be afraid? The Most High shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at his presence? Yeah, because you know what these things are. Again, Jeremiah 49 tells you quite clearly that the noise of their cry at the fall of Babylon was seen at the Red Sea. So this burning, this lake of fire, burning, when Babylon is destroyed in that hour, you're going to see it on that side of the world. So it's going to be huge, gigantic, rolling up like a scroll, as the scriptures say. So this is what we, the prophets of doom, have been saying all along. Kal halal Yahweh ba'ashem Yahushai ba'ashem Rakal Kadash wa abba babal. And brakatham to helpful elect. Shalom.